What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Mentality Unchained, to another episode. Today, I got my brother, my friend, J.R. Flanagan. We're going to talk a little bit about, the church. We're going to talk a little bit about mental health, and we're going to talk about the work he does in the community. And I just want y'all to hear this young brother out. I think he got a lot of wealth in his information, and he's one of the brothers that I thought about when I wanted to do my podcast, because I wanted to talk about mental health and how it affects the African-American community. So I think this brother got a lot of wealth of knowledge to bring to the table. So without further ado, welcome J.R. Flanagan to the set, guys. J.R., what's going on, man?
Man, what's going on, King? How you feel, man? Peace, blessings, and strength to you.
I'm good, brother. I'm good. I tell you what, man, look, let everybody know who you are and what you do, man, because I got a whole lot of stuff that I can say about you, but I'm going to let you tell your own story.
Sure. Man, well, first and foremost, I'm so grateful to be on this podcast. Just a little bit about me. I'm a man of God. I truly believe in the word of God. I'm a God-fearing man. I was a pastor at one point in time in my life. I'm still preaching, but I'm not pastoring at this time. So the Lord allowed me to do some work with the organization called Youth for Christ. And right now I'm the Juvenile Justice Ministry Director. And so what I do is I go into the youth correctional facilities and try to spread some light to those young men, simply because of the fact, regardless of the past, regardless of what they may experience on a day-to-day basis, I still try to pull out the king in them. And simply because of the fact, it all starts with mental health. A lot of our youth, a lot of our males especially, are dealing with some mental health issues, just in regards to some of the things that they've been taught, in regards to embottling a lot of it in, not communicating. Yeah. People are not here to help you, they're here to hurt you. So man, I go in and do some mentoring, some chaplain visits, and man, spread the truth and spread some light on those young men. So that's pretty much what I do at this time right now.
Okay, man, brother, I thank you for sharing that. A lot of people don't know, unless you're in the Rockford area, know of JR. He does a lot of good work in our community, man. And one of the things I remember, JR, and this is what I thought about, is that casket, man. Tell people about what that casket, the meaning and the intent behind the casket, what you did.
Sure. What's crazy is the casket getting ready to come back out. Simply because of the fact, of course, it wasn't really a violent prevention, but I wanted people to see what we see on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. A lot of our youth, a lot of our communities are being affected with, violence and so on and so forth. So the Lord put on my heart to get a casket from the church I previously was at. And we took that casket, walked it down the street for about maybe 2.5 miles, man, and just kind of prayed on some corners with that casket. Just want to make a statement that you don't want to end this way. We all got to go that route, but we don't want to go that route with violence. So that pretty much was all about with that casket. But man, we're going to bring that casket back out, man, just because of the fact I was taught something maybe about a year ago, that RRP doesn't mean rest in peace. It means revenge is promised. And so what's happening now is back to mental health again. A lot of our youth are embottling that, trying to get their revenge because they're dealing with some mental situations. Yeah. And so, man, that casket getting ready to come back out.
I appreciate that casket, man, because you know what, that my mind started to flow and the gears started to turn, man. I was like, wow, that's deep. And I know you even call yourself a radical preacher or a radical servant of God, and tell people really what that means, because a lot of people don't know. They say traditional, radical, they say whatever, but what does it mean for you when you call yourself radical?
Man, for me, I literally, I say it like this. We're living in a different world where you can play Mahalia Jackson songs. People had an 8-track. People had all of that. But now we live in a generation where we have YouTube, iPhones. So me being who I am, I want to be able to still deliver the message, but with a different method. Same message, different method, just on a different perspective. I also believe this, that if we truly going to draw, we got to come outside the four walls. And so with me being who I am, I believe in this. I actually got something that I've been working on now. I don't need a mic to preach. I'm taking it to another level. I don't need a pulpit. And so the thing about it is, man, you can have the power on these corners, these streets, in the barbershop, at the mall, so I consider myself to be that. So I try to live that and take heed to it.
What do you say about some of these members, even some of these pastors, that they may not want to venture outside of the walls of the church and reach out to our youth in our communities? What do you say to that?
Well, sure. I'll say this. Everybody has their own lane. Everybody has their own vision. But I will say this. I grew up in church, and for years, people have said the youth is the future church. So I believe this. In order for us to continue to have a thriving church, we definitely got to step outside our comfort zone. And our comfort zone has literally been the church walls. But in order to get to the next level and to bring youth to the level where they need to be in God, we got to break our comfortability. So no shade, no shots thrown, but sometimes, again, you got to get outside your comfort zone. And so some people get caught in their lane, that's their lane. But at the end of the day, if you want to continue to be effective, you at one point got to get outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, man. One of the things that I've noticed within the last, year or so with the pandemic going on, a lot of pastors, and to be quite frank with you, a lot of white pastors I have on my caseload, and that's, they have ventured out, as you say, and trying to help these individuals, but then they're finding their self need of help themselves. And so I find that a lot of them are really reaching out for help so they can help their congregation. But I don't get that from a lot of the African-American churches or pastors. And I mean, I know I can probably say what I feel, but I want to know what, from your standpoint, as a previous pastor, how did you feel actually admitting your mental health issues?
Man, I'll be transparent with you. I felt pressure, number one. I felt as if I came out and said, hey, I'm battling, I'm going to be judged, because again, you're the shepherd, you're the pastor. So when people look at the shepherd, they look at the man of God from a strength perspective.
Yeah.
And so exposing your weakness, saying that, hey, I got something going on mentally, it exposes where you are. And as the Black church, we have been, I'll say, we've been pushed to believe that the altar is the healing place. Now, that's the only place that you can go to really pour out your burdens. And I know what the word says, cast all your cares upon him. He cares for us. Right. But at the end of the day, I also believe Jesus also had some disciples. And then we look at the disciples, there were some doctors. And what I believe in this is, just because we can get healed at the altar, we got to take it to a next level as well. And so again, in our culture, in the Black church, I truly believe we've been taught to hold it in, preach through it, shout through it, pray, fast, and let it be what it is. Wow. But at the end of the day, honestly, I ran into a brick wall. And I ran into a brick wall simply because of the fact I had some situations going on. I'll explain them to you what it was. Gotcha. I never knew how to grieve. My grandmother had passed in June of 2020, high peak of pandemic. I'm pastoring at the time. So my culture, I'm taught, man, bury your grandmother, get back in the pulpit and keep punching.
Yeah.
So I did that, punched through it, preached through it, and felt low.
Wow. That's real. That's real talk. Wow. So did you get any support from any other local pastors? Because I know this is a huge decision for you, and this is you carrying God's word. You got this calling on your life, and now abruptly you stop and say, my mental health is important. I mean, did you get the support that you thought you would get, or did you get the support that, may have, kind of deterred you a little bit? What did you get from that?
Sure. I'll be honest with you. Probably 10% of the people that I reached out to supported it, because of the fact, again, we're not to not, I'm not going to say all, but there's a good amount that doesn't understand mental health. So I really wasn't encouraged. In fact, what I was shown to do was look at situations. Number one, local clergy. Man, what about the money? What about how are you going to live if you resign as a pastor?
Yeah.
But again, my mental health was on the line. It's real. And so I was encouraged, preach through it. If you preach in your pain, people can see your purpose,
Wow.
So I don't want to say that no one supported, but there was a good amount that kind of, looked at it from a different perspective. Some even said, hey, take maybe a week or two off, what we call a sabbatical. But, at the end of the day, I knew what I needed because I was the only one who was experiencing what I was experiencing.
Wow. So you really didn't start having those symptoms until after your grandmother passed, or did you have any before you actually started pastoring?
Man, I'll say this. I knew about, I actually had a therapist before I even started pastoring.
Okay.
When I became pastor, when I needed it the most though, I stopped all ties. I'll be honest.
Wow.
So for 4 years straight, I just preached. I took some time off a little bit, but I didn't really pour into my mind. I poured into my message, but not my mind. And that's a whole nother level now. So I want to say it wasn't just my grandmother's death. It was the whole pandemic experience.
Yeah.
2020 was nuts. It was crazy. I was getting on Facebook, seeing pastors die, people that were close to me die. And so in your mind, you start to think different things. And truth be told, where I got my release from was I had COVID in November of 2020. Mm-hmm. And I was able to be in my room for about 8 days straight. And I was able to hear clearly where I was. Situations happened while I was in there quarantining. One of my, I would say she's a family member of mine, but she ended up passing away. And I'm encouraging her through FaceTime, telling her, girl, go see a therapist. While I'm in quarantine, I get a call and say she was found dead. So I knew at that point, I couldn't play no more.
Man, that's a testimony, man. Look, let me tell you something. As a therapist, man, I love to hear stuff like that. I love hear testimonies, not the death part, but the fact that God has showed you that you need to go get help elsewhere. And a lot of us don't do that because a lot of people and a lot of African Americans, I don't need counseling. I don't need a therapist. Let me tell you something, man. When you are burdened down with all these thoughts and stuff going through your head, you can't sort it out. You need somebody to help you to sort that stuff out. You sitting by yourself, you going through a whole bunch of other stuff, right? And so for you to do that, brother, I commend you, and I commend your bravery for stepping down because of that. So, man, hats off to you, brother.
Man, I appreciate that, but it's so real. Like I said, and I've been invited to different conversations like this, and I tell people at the end of the day, every now and again, where you may go get gas, mm-hmm. they may shut that gas station down because the gas station got to get filled. Wow. And what happened was, again, I realized some of my mistakes, some of my mishaps, and it was because of the fact I didn't take the proper break that I needed mentally. Because again, going on vacations, having sabbatical, that's not dealing with your mental state. You can sit along the beach and still have some situations going on.
Right. You right about that, man. A lot of people that see that outer appearance, people are fooled by the outer appearance. You look good, you smell good, you feel good, you look good, and they feel that you got it all put together, and that's not the case. Not all the time. People go through things. I always tell people, anytime I speak anywhere when it comes to mental health, I tell people that you are 1 minute from a mental health problem, because it don't take much. Just like you said, your grandmother passed away, man. Look, we got people passing away all the time. So, people take it for granted that mental health is not, they feel that it's not real. But I'm telling you, when that thing hit home, it's a different story.
Yeah, it does. Simply because as well, I was reading a book on my journey, and it was pretty much saying, just per se, someone may make $20 an hour. They make $20 an hour for 10 years and they lose that job. Now they start to a new career where they only make $15 an hour. So that's a $5 an hour cut. They themselves may need to go see some therapy now, because now you have to adjust and adapt to another lifestyle and a living. So we always look at situations as saying, well, my situation is not that, but you never know how crucial just a life-changing situation can adjust your thoughts.
Yeah, right. We're human, right? We feel that. So, before I kind of segue into another line of questioning, I kind of wanted what advice would you give to leadership, the church or pastors that may or may not understand the ramification for mental health? What kind of advice would you give them?
Man, I would say this first and foremost, have a moment before you need a miracle.
Wow.
I'm gonna say it again. Have a moment before you need a miracle.
I like that.
And what happens is, no matter how strong, no matter how deep you are in the word, no matter how long you've been serving God's people, at the end of the day, you really want to come from a perspective of having a clear state of mind, because you think better. You're able to even come up with better vision. You're coming up with better creativity when your mind is clear. So I encourage a lot of pastors, even some that are in my circle, some have actually took the step because of the step I took, because again, people see the difference. People once, they knew JR, but they see a different JR. I tell people all the time, I'm probably the strongest I've been mentally in years. Wow. Simply because of the fact I was able to let a lot of the things that were bothering me, that I never shared with people, that we pressed down, shake together, I poured it out. So I encourage men of God, have a moment. And just because you go see a therapist, I tell people this, you're not crazy. You go so you won't go crazy.
Man, I'm so glad you on here vouching for therapists, because I've been beating this tune for like forever, man. And they saying, well, you a therapist, that's why you doing it, but you ain't a therapist. So I appreciate you tooting that horn for me a little bit. So, but let's talk about the crux of who you are, JR. Let's talk about the youth. I mean, you've started all these different programs from when you started back in 2010, all these youth programs, all these mentoring programs. And now you're with Youth for Christ. Why the youth? Again, I know you spoke a little bit about it, but why the youth?
Number one, the youth is the future. The youth, again, I tell people all the time, I would rather hang around kids and teenagers any day of the week. Why? Because we don't understand that they're really pure. We make them toxic. And we make them toxic because we haven't dealt with the mental health of our own. So some of the situations that they are involved in, it's only because of the fact of what they've been taught. So I believe this, if you pour into the youth, you will always have a successful chance with the next generation. And so that's why I constantly want to pour into youth, because it's a constant cycle. It's a constant revival of youth. Because listen, if somebody didn't pour into me as a young man, I wouldn't be the young man that I am now. Right, and so I just take that to heart, because again, we see the streets, we see the thugs, we see the gangsters, we see all of that, but it takes men of God, it takes people who really have the light, the truth, to have some time with them and understand that they can too make it through a pandemic, through a situation of crisis or generational curses. So that's why I choose the youth. Because man, the youth, I tell people all the time, the youth gonna let you know where they are right away. Yeah. It's adults, you got to figure them out.
Yeah, that's real talk there. I totally agree with you. One of the things that I've had to backtrack with my kids is, they're adults now, but one of the things that I had to do, JR, and that I didn't think about until probably 5-6 years ago, is that I apologize to my kids because of the things that I did not know. When I say the things that I did not know, I wasn't taught those things. And so I couldn't actually give them what they actually needed in that time. And so what I've come to understand now is that a lot of parents are not apologizing to their kids for what they didn't know. You're a young 21, 20-year-old parent. You don't know about life. And so you try to give them the best you know how, and you're actually damaging them not knowing that.
Sure. And I mean, and it's key. But again, I'm not trying to beat the drum of mental health. But the first thing we have to do, we have to learn to apologize. It sounds easy, but it's not.
It's not.
Just going back to your child saying, hey, I messed up a little bit. I
Yeah.
led you down the street because I didn't really know. That takes a lot from a man, from a father, from a mother to go to your child, go to the young people and say, hey, I was leading you in a situation that I just didn't know. And truth be told, I mean, I say it again, I'm straight no chaser. A lot of things that we have taught our kids is because that's what we were taught. Yeah. There was a story, and I don't want to be long, but there was a story of a grandmother. She had a daughter who had a daughter. So the daughter was teaching her younger girl how to cook roast. Mm-hmm. So she said, this is how you do it. So you got to cut some of the meat off and some of the fat off, and you put it in the oven. So the younger girl said, Mom, why do we do it like this? She says, I have no idea. Let me call grandmama. Wow. So she called grandma, asked grandma, she said, Grandma, why do we cut some of the meat and the fat off? She said this, because back in the day, we didn't have a pot that was big enough to have all that meat in one pot. So all these years, we've been cutting meat and fat off. You know what I'm saying? You could have kept all that good eating, but you cut it off.
That's right.
Because of what you was taught. So again, it's just apologizing and truly understanding that even with me, I love my parents, but there's some things that I was taught that I don't agree with now. And so I'm fixing those areas now, trying to make the next generation even better with that.
Man, that's real talk. That's the stuff that I'm talking about right there. It's like we have to realize, once we realize that we've made some mistake, then we need to correct that. And it's not beyond you as a human being to go back and apologize to your kids because you made some mistakes based on what you were taught or not taught. And so that's the crux of it. And I think everybody's walking around here and they want to portray that they have it all together when we don't. And it's okay to say I don't.
And it's going even back. I know you're talking about youth parenting right now, but even in the church, it's okay for a pastor to say, hey, I need a moment. I don't know it all right now. You know what I mean? Where we mess up at is when we faking it until we make it. Yeah. That's when we're going to have some consequences. So it's okay. I have a 14-year-old and a 4-year-old. Mm-hmm. Sometimes my 14-year-old may ask me some questions. Boo, I don't know. Let's sit down and figure this thing out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's real. That's real. So you did a live feed probably about a month ago, and you talked about how these two young men, because I want to get into how our young men are thinking about things and how their worldview is shaped. You were on live and you talked about the clothing versus the grades and the behaviors. Shed a little light on that for the people.
Sure. Man, first and foremost, my dad was a monster. My dad was a beast. My dad used to take me and my brother to the mall. He used to have us look at mannequins. He called them dummies. He said, son, you see those dummies? They dressed up, but they ain't going nowhere. I said, Lord have mercy. At the time, I thought my dad was the worst man in the world because I wanted that look. And so now we're dealing with a generation who have the look, but don't have a lifestyle. And so what's happening now is they got the Jordans on, but they can't read and write. So I heard somebody say, what if we start clothing our kids to their reading level? What would that look like? Wow. What would that look like? So again, with our young men, I love them and I try to encourage them the best way I can. But I want our young men to not have the look, but have the lifestyle. Because we're kings, we're queens, we're not savages, we're not that ratchet lifestyle that we portray. So we get caught up in that look and we buy all that clothing, but we don't put no books and no. Listen, I know you're talking good, Kevin, because you got me fired up. But this is the thing, bro. We will pack out a stadium for a football game, but we won't pack out parent-teacher conference. I got an issue with that because now we're trying to make athletes and we're not dealing with things from a perspective of getting the education. So I look at things from a different perspective now, man. So that's pretty much what I was saying on that line.
You know what? And I was just last week I was saying that to my son. My son's 17. He's my youngest, and I was telling him that we have to have coaches, and this all ties in. We have to have coaches that are willing to make young men, because what now they're looking for, they want the talent, they want to win, but they're not making men out of them. They got the young men coming off the field throwing helmets and cursing and not respecting the elders. I mean, and so I'm like, where we need some leadership that's going to train our young men, help train our young men to be men. And we're missing that from the hood to the schools until the workforce. We're not training them on every level. So that's where we're having a problem. So this is a conversation that I've had with my son, man, because at the end of the day is that if we're not careful, and this is how mental health ties into it, if we're not careful, the illiteracy of our youth will end up being a mental health issue in the future.
Sure, because we throwing helmets now, but we'll start throwing humans later.
Yes.
Which causes us, again, you use the key word, anger.
Yeah.
It's so many youth that's angry. So again, with me being in the spot that I'm in, me going into these correctional facilities, I'm seeing young men after they have done their crime. I'm seeing them time maybe 3 months later. I say, man, tell me all about it. They say this to me, JR, if I wasn't so angry, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So again, it's the mental health. It's teaching them how to lose. See, we teach our kids how to win, but sometimes you got to teach them how to lose, because losing gives you a different response. If you win all the time, you won't know how to respond to life, because life, you're going to take some L's for real.
Yeah.
And you just can't get angry, throwing, having them fit, because it's not going to work like that.
Yeah, I've learned that you succeed and you're successful in your affliction, not your success. Because when you're afflicted, that's when you learn about who you are as an individual and what you need to get to the next place in your life. And we're so busy, just what you're saying, we're looking for the wins. One of the things I like to read books and I like to listen to audiobooks. And so Tim Grover, was the trainer for Michael Jordan. And he says that people think that you can actually put into a person what you want them to have, but that person has to already have it in them in order to be what that purpose is. So what I'm saying is that we have a lot of young men walking around here with treasures and gifts in them, but they don't even know it.
Real. It's so real. Because again, you saying a mouthful, because I say it all the time. I tell these youth, you're not that. You're a king, man. I want you to know that. I try to encourage them to see the gift and the treasures that they have, because at the end of the day, if they don't see it, grave is their future.
Yeah.
Death is their future, because again, I'll be honest, I'm 34, but some of the passes that I was able to receive with the things that I've done in my past, they getting slammed now.
Gotcha.
So if you don't really understand the greatness that's in you now, we in trouble.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge problem too, is that it seems from the surface that a lot of our elder pastors feel that they don't know how to reach our young men, and to some degree they don't, but on the same token, they knew and they know how they were being taught how to be men. It's the same principle, but you can't be as strict and as rigid as your father or your grandfather was, because my grandfather was, man, look, he didn't look, I mean, he would cut water hoses up on me. That's how bad it was. So, but I couldn't do that with my son. So I had to back and really analyze that thing of like, okay, I can't handle him like my grandfather handled me. And I think that's where we at with a lot of the older pastors, is that they don't stand back and look and say, I can't handle that young man like I was handled when I was coming through the ministry.
Well, first and foremost, I say this all the time. Loving kindness does the drawing, number one. Mm-hmm. But the second thing is, you said they can't reach them. Mm-hmm. I believe they can, but you got to expose your wound. Oh. See, we all got a past. We all done done some stuff, but we want to look as if we always been clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes you got to expose your pain to get somebody to their purpose. Mm-hmm. So once you expose your pain, that's when that person can see pain and get to their purpose. But if you never expose your pain, if you never say, man, I used to be a drunk, I used to smoke, I used to do these things. But if you never say that, or let me say this, if you never look back over your life, how can you tell somebody about their life?
I agree.
And so that's where we are, even when you say elder, men of God, pastors, preachers, whoever, we just have to be able to understand we have dabbled in something too. And we have to not just say we tell the business, but we have to be able to understand where they are. In fact, there's a man in the Bible named Paul. He was up preaching. Mm-hmm. Eutychus fell out the window. Paul stopped preaching, got on Eutychus' level. So what I'm saying is, as men of God, we got to get on that level sometime.
Right.
Yeah,
we're ready to cast them out though, right? We don't get our hands dirty. We don't get our knees dirty. That's
for real.
So you know what? I have a heart for men. I do. I have a heart to see young men and men in general to succeed. And because I've come from two different dynamics, from the projects and from the South, I know what that feels like to be ostracized or pushed to the side. So when I see young men that are not thriving in our communities, I'm trying to save them. But I do know everybody don't want to be saved. But what I do though, is I put the effort forward. I open myself up to, for instance, if I was at church, I see a young man walking through, I'd be like, hey, young man, and I'll try to chop it up with him. Because at the end of the day, that's an opportunity to reach out to that young man. You don't know what that young man is going to do. And so I don't want to ever pass up an opportunity to reach a young man because I feel like I'm not on his level or I can't get on his level.
Sure. And the thing about it is, I tell young men this, I'm willing, but you got to put some work in this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because sometimes you're right, and I have to come to a conclusion with this. Every young man that I reach out to is not going to be saved.
Right.
Some of them are going to be stuck in what they're in.
Gotcha.
It's their choice. I don't like it, but it's the truth. Because again, that was some of my mental health situation.
Yeah.
You're trying to get this young man or somebody to this point, and they don't want to get to that point. So you start to blame you. You start to say, am I good enough? Am I doing enough?
Yeah.
It's not always on you. I'm willing, but you got to put some work in this.
Right. That's true. That's true. So JR, where's God taking you right now? Where are you at in your life? Where's God taking you?
Man, honestly, I'm having a ball in ministry. I'll be honest, because man, even the church I currently go to, shout out to my pastor, Bishop Brandon Jacobs, out there in Hammond, Indiana. So I'm under his covering right now.
Gotcha.
And man, we're having a ball with evangelism. You said a key word with men.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going after. I'm going after men right now. And honestly, I'm going after those who have some hood on them. Because what happens is, when we look at the Apostle Paul was Saul before. Saul was a brother. He was right. He was rough around the edges.
Right.
So I'm going after the guys that's rough around the edges simply because of the fact I truly believe that if they get a hold of truth, they'll be able to be better men, which can make better families, which can make better churches.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, like I said, man, I'm having a ball with evangelism. I love outreach ministry. I love having church outside of church because that's just where I'm able to flow. I don't want to feel I heard somebody say this, I'm claustrophobic. You know what I mean? I don't want to be closed in to the church.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So again, man, I'm having a ball with ministry right now. So I'm reaching out to men. I'm going door to door like the Muslims, man. I'm outside.
That's what I'm
because
talking about.
Again, I heard Jamal Bryant say this and made a lot of sense. We say in the Christian faith that men don't go to church.
Mm-hmm.
True, but men are going to the mosque.
Yeah.
And it's starting with a whole lot of dynamics. I don't really want to go there, but it started with discipline.
Yes.
And we as men of God, we got to be disciplined. So, man, it's a whole lot, but I'm having a ball. So right now, man, I'm doing evangelism and I'm having a ball with it.
Yeah, that's cool. I can rock with that. Let's talk about inclusion. Let's talk about how we got so many people that don't feel included in the Christian faith, even if they believe. I get a lot of clients feel, and it's a different dynamic, but they feel that they're not accepted into the body of Christ, be it the way they are, the behaviors, or who they are as a person. Where do you stand when it comes to inclusion to the Christian faith?
Sure, man, I'll say this. I only can speak for me, but I will say this. What I've seen, we really have to look again at Jesus now. Jesus loved for real. Like he loved at a whole nother level. And so with some of our churches, not all, there ain't no love in these churches, man. I'm a pastor. I've been in a lot of churches, and people only respect the suit and not the student, not the person. And that's the individual. Right. I mean, that's the issue. So when you're talking including, am I included because of my gift? Yeah. Am I included because of what I have on? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, if we're going to be believers, followers of Jesus Christ, we got to show love and kindness. So that's the situation. Some feel like they're not included because is love really there? Yeah. When I pull up to the church, I got an usher. Mm-hmm. She mean. Yeah. Listen, I tell people all the time, and it's not everywhere, but sometimes I believe the church needs to have a Chick-fil-A experience.
Wow.
That's customer service.
Yeah.
That's treating people fairly and right. My pleasure. Have a great day. And you don't get that. So you feel disconnected because I can't sing. I can't preach. I just want to come to church, get a word. I can't really get involved with those things because I'm not gifted in that area. Right. And so am I pushed away or you going to pull me in? And sometimes if you don't have that gift, you can be pushed away, which is sad. So again, for me, for believers, I do believe we got to show love and kindness so we won't feel like we're not included.
You know what? I can appreciate that you say for me, because I do need to put the disclaimer out that J.R. Flanagan and Kevin Thomas is not speaking on behalf of every church and every pastor in the Rockford area. We're just speaking from our experiences and how we've seen and viewed our area that we live in. So I just want to put that out there because a lot of people be like, oh, they talk about this. No, it ain't even like that.
Man, folks can be messy. But again, even with that, that's how people feel like they're not included. Yeah. Because we can be so messy and not be caught up in the message. Yeah. And we have to really understand, we got to love people where they are. Listen now, we cannot change. God changed. God does the increase. Listen, all I can do is invite you. All I can do is show you. But at the end of the day, God is the one that increased, not me. J.R. Flanagan, I can't do nothing but plant the seed.
Yeah, that's it.
He gets the increase.
Right.
He does it.
Yeah, that's real talk. I can appreciate that as well. So, with all the stuff that you've done, all the things that you've been involved in, what's your greatest accomplishment, man?
Man, you know what? I'll be honest with you. Is being married 10 years. Man, I'll be married 10 years, October the 7th, my 10-year anniversary. Gotcha. And the reason why I say that, and I don't take that lightly, because as men of God, man, we got to learn how to really treat the favor, which is our wives, which is our children. So again, I live by a motto. don't be a hero in church and a hellion at home.
Whew.
So my biggest accomplishment is being a faithful husband, a faithful father, man, for the last 10 years of my life. I mean, because I'm around it, man. Like I said, I've seen, that's neither here nor there, but that's one of my greatest accomplishments. It's truly being married to one woman the last 10 years of my life. Man, she pushes me in ministry. Now you talking supporting through mental health.
Yeah.
Now that's a whole nother invite.
Hey, man. Hey, she there. That's what it's about, man. You need that support. Love, you need that support from family members if you can get it, but your wife, you definitely need that support, man. I feel you 100% on that. I mean, in October 24th, I'll be married 24 years.
Man, that's what's up.
and look, let me tell you something, brother. It ain't always been easy either, but no. I had to check myself. You see what I'm saying? I'm not gonna even talk about her. I had to check myself in order to be the man that I am today. And so I want young brothers out there that are getting into these marriages and these relationships to make sure they're checking themselves when they get into these relationships and stop blaming our women for all of our problems and our issues. And that's what we like to do because we don't want to be accountable to our behavior.
Man, and see, it's the accountability and the discipline. You nailed it. And what happens is, again, back to mental health. In order to be a faithful husband, you got to deal with you. You got to look at you in the mirror. And as men, we don't. Yeah. Because again, I tell brothers all the time, man, I'm a chess player. I love the game of chess.
Yeah.
And I can win without the queen, but it's very hard.
It is hard.
And so what I'm saying is, man, I got a queen for real. Mm-hmm. So that's where a lot of my wins come. So I have to treat that queen, my wife, with the favor. Yeah. But I have to deal with JR, deal with JR past, his anger issues.
Yep.
Because again, just because you have, you may feel like it's right for you to say it, but is it the right timing? But that's all mental health.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You know what? And that is true. We're going to get ready to get out of here, but I won't say this though, is that you're absolutely right. When it comes to marriages, and this is what I tell my couples, is that you have to ensure that you check your past at the door, because you are bringing something that your wife or your husband don't know anything about into the fold, and it can erupt in any moment. So if you don't check yourself, you will have a whole big old mess on your hand in your marriage. So we have to make sure that we're checking ourselves at the door and knowing what our past has, the effect that it has on our relationship. And so,
it's real.
Yeah, because at the end of the day is that those things, and a lot of times, like you said, a lot of times we don't even know what we have until stuff start triggering us. and
triggers a whole nother level.
Right. The worst time to be triggered is a time that you don't want to be triggered. And so so
that's real.
But that's the real deal though. You have to make sure though that you check yourself, because at the end of the day in marriage there are no winners or losers. Either you both win or you both lose.
Come on now.
Straight like that. If you think you won and she lost, it don't even work like that.
Come on now. That's real.
So, but you know what? We're going to get ready to get out of here, man. I really, really, truly enjoyed this, and I'm going to bring you back and we're going to chop it up some more. But man, this has been real. This has been a real experience. I appreciate you, but I do want to give you the last word to say whatever it is that's on your heart, brother, whatever you're feeling, whatever you're thinking, just whatever it is, just let's hear what you got.
Sure, man. Well, first, man, again, I'm honored to be here, man. Thank you again for this opportunity. But to those who are watching, to those who are in tune, if you are battling mental health issues, please reach out. Please reach out. I'm going to give you a story and I'm going to leave it at this. I love boxing, but Floyd Mayweather was in a fight and he was getting tappered on a little bit. So the crowd was booing Floyd because this particular round, he went more in a defensive position. So it looked like he was running. So the next round, Floyd get out trying to punch, but he was taking some hits. Mm-hmm. Floyd trainer, which is his dad, said, Floyd, You're going to lose the fight if you focus on the crowd and not the fight. So what I'm telling you is the fight is your mind. You got to fight it. And you fight it with help, with people who have went to school. They can get you to the next. Don't focus on the crowd. Crowd would tell you, boo, you all right. You still looking good, but you know all by yourself what you're battling with. So I encourage you. You're not a chump. You're not weak. You're not crazy. You're not lame if you go see a therapist. Check in before you check out. Man, that's what I got tonight, man. Again, peace, blessings, and strength. Thank you for inviting me, man. I appreciate it.
That's J.R. Flanagan, y'all. I appreciate you, J.R. Good looking out. And like I always say, we all have the ability to change our situation only if we focus on what we can change. Thank you for joining Mentality Unchained, and I'll talk to you later.